Breaking down Arizona Wildcats football for a final time this season. The 2022 campaign is in the books. The Wildcats finish at 5-7. I'm David Kelly, joined as always by Glenn Howell, U of A football class of 1985. And Glenn, we're actually about a week doing this later than we had anticipated. The COVID monster finally got up and got me, so I was out last weekend. But so it might have actually been a good thing because a whole lot of stuff happened this past week with the opening of the transfer portal doors and a lot of folks getting into it. And maybe obviously the most shocking of all of those was the decision by Dorian Singer to leave, although I'm not necessarily sure how shocking that is. To me, Dorian always kind of seemed like a wild card kind of kid. I wasn't really sure, what, I mean, and not to say that he did not work hard, because for all the indications I got is that this kid was an extremely hard worker. But it just seemed to me that at times, and even last year, Kevin Cummings alluded to maybe there was a little bit of a disconnect with him. And so I'm not necessarily overly shocked that Dorian decided that he might not want to come back to Arizona.
Yeah, I'm not shocked at all. I'm not shocked at all that he's leaving. I just, I'm on the sideline all the time, and I wasn't shocked. So I hope he has a great place for him to go. He's got a lot of opportunities. Good luck to him, and if he wants to come back, you never know. Some of these guys might try to come back. So we don't know. The portal is gonna be, it's just a crazy thing, man. We lost most of our defensive linemen are all gone. So we got to be able to replenish our defensive linemen. And, I think we need some tight ends, and we need definitely need some offensive line. The guys up front on both sides of the ball, we definitely need those guys. So I hope they're hunting those guys down. I know we got a couple of guys. We got the guy from UCLA. We're just cherry picking some guys from UCLA. That's the second guy we got. But we have to be able to replenish on those guys up front.
Yeah, you mentioned the defensive linemen. Among those, Keon Bars, Paris Shan, obviously in the portal. J.B. Brown had gone in early in the season, and those guys. Keon's getting some good offers out there. I think there's no question that Keon Bars can go into another program and be a rotational defensive lineman. But again, I think this is a U of A team, and Jedd Fisch came out after the season was over and said, hey, there's going to be as much change this offseason as there was last offseason. And I think if there's going to be a shift to more youth, and my philosophy has always been, I got no problem if a guy graduates, which a lot of these young men have. Keon Bars is a graduate. If he came here and did what he had to do, he got his degree, and if he wants to go and finish out at another location, I have absolutely no problem with that. A little bit more disappointed with a decision from a kid like Dorian Singer, who I think, they gave an opportunity to him when maybe there wasn't an opportunity there necessarily for him, and he was able to take that opportunity and put himself in another place. But ultimately, look, if a kid doesn't want to be here, then you got to move on to the next situation. It is, I think there was one of my favorite all-time movies is New Jack City, and one of the lines was Nino Brown said, "If they're not gonna roll with us, we're gonna roll over them." Yeah,
exactly. Let's let them go. I agree with you. If they don't want to be here, they shouldn't be here. They let them get in the portal, and then let them go out there, and they got it. There's an interesting stat. Only 40% of the guys that go into the portal actually get picked up. So that is a scary situation, man. So if you go in the portal, that's a major decision to go in there and see if you can get the same thing. If you're getting a full ride scholarship here, you better hope that you can get one over there. And then you look at what's happening in this portal. The portal thing is they're all going to get gobbled up because the guy up in Boulders here. So he's picking up. He's in there, going in there he's got a different menu than us, I think. So he's going in there and getting all those big fellas. That's what he said he wanted to get. and he's starting to get those guys.
You know, and it's interesting. It's interesting, Glenn. You know how this whole transfer portal, in terms of, you know, if guys are looking for NIL, and to me, it's like, you know, and I'm gonna have to really look a little bit deeper into what exactly NIL is and what some of these schools may be offering kids, because to be quite honest with you, you know, I mean, if you're going, if you think you're gonna go. If you weren't getting NIL here because maybe your personality wasn't a fit for a business wanting you to be a front man for them or a pitch person for them, you think you're going to go to a bigger market and be in front of the camera or be somebody that can get those types of opportunities? I mean, we've got a young man from here, you know, Bijan Robinson, who is one of the best players in college football, but he also has one of the best personalities of any kid that you'll ever be around. And you could tell that with a Bijan Robinson very early on, that he was going to be able to handle those types of things and be able to be a kid who could communicate well with others. And I mean, I just think it's one thing if you're a good player, but if you don't necessarily have a personality, I don't really understand what NIL is going to do for you in a bigger place.
And the big thing is that 40 to 44%. That's the number. You got to look at that number. So
and there's there were over 1,000 kids, which was on what, triple or double what it was last year.
That's what I'm saying. It's more kids that are going in there. So you got to really make sure that you got an offer before you go in, you know, because that's what it is. And then you got to look at Big Five. I think Big Five, you're averaging, scholarship guys are getting 25,000. I think that's the baseline. Okay, there's some other schools that might be giving more, but that's the baseline. You know, and you know, from going from 0 to 25, that I think that's pretty good. I think that's pretty good. So if you think you can get more, and you better make sure you get that offer for more. Otherwise, you need to, you know, sit down and get better and work hard and play your butt off and get your degree.
Yeah, not everybody's going to get a fancy car. That's for sure. You know, you better be able to have a little bit more than just athletic ability to justify getting those shiny new wheels that some of the Wildcats like Jaden Delora and those were able to get just within the recent last weeks. All right, let's hand out some awards, Glenn, as we always do on our final program of the year, our MVPs for the season. We'll start on offense, and I'm going to let you go first with your offensive MVP.
I got to go with Jaden Delora. He's just played fantastic this year. He had a couple up and down games. I think that's going to be something that's going to be cleared up for next year. I think I'm really excited about what he can do in the future here. And he played, you know, the games that we won and the games that we lost, he played pretty decently too. But he just, you know, if it wasn't for him, we wouldn't have won those games. We couldn't have won those games. I think he did a great job of leading us to those victories. And he's my MVP for the offensive side of the ball.
Third best passing season ever by an Arizona Wildcat, Jaden Delora, behind Nick Foles and Anu Solomon. And you said early in the year you believe that this is a kid that could eventually be the all-time passing leader here at the University of Arizona. He's still got some work to do to get to just over the 10,000 yards that Nick Foles threw for. He would have to stay 2 more years and basically do the same thing that he did this past season, but definitely that is something that is in range for Jaden Delora if he holds on. The 6 touchdown passes that he threw in the home game against Colorado, the top touchdown passing performance in the Pac-12 this season with those 6 touchdown throws. He finished with 3,685 yards. All right, we're going to switch over to the defense. I'm going to go first on this one, Glenn, and I'm going to say Jacob Manu, the young freshman linebacker, the last of the Servites, as I nicknamed him towards the end of the season. And for me, Glenn, it came down to he was just an impact player down the stretch. You look at the fact that the last 3 games, which the Wildcats won 2 against UCLA, against Arizona State, against UCLA for the performance he had in that game. He was named the Pac-12 Freshman of the Week. And then at ASU, he came up with the two biggest defensive plays to close out that win and end the losing streak to the Sun Devils. He started just 7 games, but to me, he was the most important player on that defense down the stretch, and that's why Jacob Manu is my defensive MVP.
He is also mine. The reason why he's mine because of the attitude he brought to that defense. He elevated that defense with just his attitude of way of his grit, his nastiness that he played, in intensity. When he went up to the UCLA quarterback and went up to him and he was talking stuff to him, I said, this is my guy, because he was just telling him that we're going to be here, we're coming for you. And you can see it in his eyes, man. You can see it in his eyes that he was bringing the intensity, and he brought it with his play. Not only with his mouth, he did it with his play. And I got to give more just the props to the kid, because he elevated everybody that was around him.
All right, special teams MVP, Glenn, who do you have there?
I got Warnell. DJ has just did a great job. He started a couple of games, and then he came off. Then he wasn't starting, but he continued to play his butt off on the special teams. That's what a pro player does. That's how you can actually make it to the pros, to the NFL, is in being able to play special teams. He was a great special teams player. Coach Fish was always talking about him in the press conference of how good he played in special teams. He was always around the ball. I think he was a leader, and he accepted his role. That's a hard role to accept, man, when you're not starting and then you just got to go out on special teams. Some of those guys, because your egos, you come from a place where you've been playing all the time, in high school, you're the star, and then all of a sudden you're on special teams. What's up with that? I mean, you have to change your whole attitude of that, and that's what I like about him. He played it with tenacity, he played smart, and he got after it.
Well, I think this is unbelievable, Glenn. I think for the first time ever, we've been doing this a long time, we are in complete agreement on all 3 MVPs, because I too am going with DJ Warnell. 9 special teams tackles. In fact, I believe he is up for a national special teams award, is DJ Warnell, and was involved on a couple of those special teams takeaways that this team had as well. You're absolutely right. He seemed like he was absolutely around the football, whether it was the punt return or the kick return coverage. And so DJ Warnell is also my special teams MVP. It was not an easy decision for me. I looked at Tyler Loop, and Tyler Loop had some very good numbers on the season. 18 of 21 field goals. That was 4th in the Pac-12 in terms of percentage. Made all 38 of his PATs. He was one of 6 players in the Pac-12 that was 100% on point after touchdowns. But I just didn't think he had any big kicks this season. He really wasn't in any situations where he had to make an impact kick this season. Kyle Ostendorp was number 2 in average, but his percentage inside the 20, which is a bigger thing for me, was only 30%, and that was not top 3. So that's why I went with DJ Warnell as my special teams MVP this season. Glenn, some other interesting stats I want to throw out there just from some guys, and we'll go back to the final ball game. Michael Wiley, his 214-yard rushing performance, that was the 2nd best rushing performance this season in the Pac-12, behind the best one, which was against Arizona, turned in by Cal's Jaden Ott at 274 yards. Boy, the job Michael Wiley did just at not only running the ball, but just as a pass catcher, really showed his dual threat ability this season.
Michael Wiley is a complete back. What I was impressed with this is his blocking at the point of attack on pass plays. He was picking up guys. He was doing all the things he needed to do. And then he can run inside the tackles. He can run outside. He can catch the ball on the swing pass. He can run routes, which was great. And then he can make catches down the field. That's what you have. That's what Christian McCaffrey does. That's what you were watching with the 49ers. that's the kind of things that they want is the NFL back, and I think that Michael has all those tangibles to be that guy. Um, he's just a complete back, and he plays hard, and he just goes in there and does his job, and that's what kind of backs you need to have.
A pair, Glenn, of 1,000-yard receivers in Jacob Cowing and Dorian Singer. You know, one of the things that stood out to me when I was looking at this is there's only ever been, including Cowing and Singer, there have only been 8 other guys, so 10 total, that had over 1,000 yards receiving in any single in the history of this program.
Yeah, we never really have been a team that just, it was an air raid. I mean, even with Rich Rod, I mean, you think about it, we really weren't throwing the ball that much. We were basically, a lot of it was a run offense, and we just haven't had that. And those guys had a fantastic season. Those guys made big plays when we needed it. They continue to produce every single game, because that's what you have to do. If you're a 1,000-yard receiver, you got to produce every single game. You're averaging you're averaging 70 yards a game. That's pretty good. So you got to be able to get after it every day, and that's running precise routes. That's getting open. That's making sure that you're reading your hot reads, doing all the stuff, and having communication with your quarterback.
Jacob Cowing, 85 catches. That was number 1 in the Pac-12, the 3rd best pass-catching season ever in U of A history, behind Bobby Wade and Dennis Northcutt. Dorian Singer's 1,105 yards. That was number 1 in the Pac-12. They both had 3 touchdown games this season, which was tied for the top spot in the Pac-12, and Cowing's 12 catches against Colorado for 180 yards, the 2nd best receiving game by a Pac-12 receiver this season. And we obviously don't want to leave out the incredible job done by McLaughlin on the offensive side as well this season. 34 catches, 456 yards, the best receiving season by a tight end since Rob Gronkowski. He is on point to potentially be able to put his name in the record books for pass catching from that tight end position over the course of next season as well. And I'll continue to point out that I thought he was one of the more critical pieces, Glenn, in the run game. Just his ability as a blocker as the season went on just kept growing and growing and growing.
Yeah, I think he was a pivotal part in the run game, and you have to be as a tight end. You block first, and then you get the gifts of getting a receiving a catch. That's what you get. You got to block first, got to earn your way to a catch, and I think he did that. And without him, I don't think those guys get 1,000 yards. He really put pressure on that defense of defending him. He was definitely a pass threat. I think Cowing got snubbed by all Pac-10 and all the Pac-12 stuff. I don't know what was up with that. How do you lead the league in receptions and then lead the league in a bunch of some other category in the top 3, and you're not all conference? That's what I thought that was disappointing.
Yeah, well, and that might be one of the reasons why guys look to maybe go somewhere else where they feel like, well, if I'm playing in Los Angeles at a USC or UCLA or in Washington, maybe I get that notoriety. And do you buy into that guys maybe can't get the notoriety here in Tucson that maybe they can get in some of these other places?
No, I think you can. We just got to get better. We get better here and we play, because you got to look at if you're succeeding on the field, you're doing it and you're putting in, then you got to start winning games. If we start winning games, you're going to get the notoriety. You're going to get that. You just got to start winning games. I think we have a potential to win 7 to 8 games next year, and really put ourselves on the map. I mean, this is where we at. We got a great quarterback coming back. We got to fill a couple spots on the offensive line, and then we got on the defense and I think our offense should be real potent next year. We got some young guys, some young receivers that are going to have to step up, and we haven't even talked about T-Mac. T-Mac is, all freshman. He had a fantastic year, and he's just going to get better. So we have to really be able to win ball games, and we can get more, getting noticed more in everything and all across the country.
One other thing on defense, Hunter Echols finished the year as the top negative play defender. He had 8 tackles for loss, 8.5 tackles for loss, 4.5 sacks. And I want to go back to something, Glenn, we talked about all season, and that was playing smart on defense. He had a play at the end when he hit Trenton Bourget out of bounds that could have been a death nail for this defense. Thankfully, the freshman Jacob Manu picked him up later in that drive. But I think that one of the things we talk about, and when we get guys that are transferring in, and we have an array of guys that are transferring in, guys from smaller programs, guys from like Hunter Echols who are from bigger programs. But I think a lot of times when you see these kids, Glenn, are transferring into Arizona, they're looking to be a bigger player on that starting stage. And I think we expect a lot from these kids because they're coming in as veterans. But I think we also have to maybe pull back a little bit because a lot of those kids have not necessarily played when the lights are really on. And so we saw some instances this year. We saw it with Hunter Echols. We saw it with Jerry Roberts, and we even saw it at the end of the season with Christian Roland Wallace, which was surprising. He got a couple of personal fouls at the end of the season as well. But some of these guys, I think, that are coming in looking for that grander stage aren't maybe necessarily ready for that, and they need to be coached up to be ready when the spotlight goes on, how they need to handle their business when they're out there.
Absolutely. We're not getting the Caleb Williams. We're not getting those guys to transfer. We're not going to get those guys. We're getting the guys that probably didn't play that much, and they, there's probably a reason because maybe the talent in front of them were really, really good. So when you come here, you have an opportunity, and maybe that growth will be a little bit more because they're getting more opportunity to play. So that's where that's what we're gambling on. We're throwing the dice on that. That's what we're doing. When we bring these guys in out of the portal, we're thinking if he gets a little bit more time to play, he'll develop more because he wasn't getting many reps where he was at. So if he gets more reps, he's going to get better. So that's what we're gambling on.
All right, yeah, and they just got to be ready. They got to understand situations when they get into those late game situations where everything is so magnified. You have to be able to handle your business and not put your team in peril down the stretch. Good, though, to hear that Jerry Roberts is a guy that's going to be back next year, a tremendous leader in that locker room, and that's going to be a guy, I think, that you want to have back because of all the intangibles that he brings to this program inside that locker room, and he'll learn from the mistakes that he made this year on the field and be better in that respect next year. I think for me, in terms of Jerry on the field next year, if he's going to be, look, was not a guy, not a high tackle for loss guy, but what I'd like to see from him is if he's not going to be a high negative numbers guy, be what I call a 1-2-3 guy. Get me more 1-yard tackles, 2-yard tackles, under 3-yard tackles, which we saw him get in the ASU game. He was getting a lot of those under 3-yard plays. That's what I want to see if you're not going to be a negative play guy.
Yeah, what I want to see from him next year is no more mistakes. Can't have any more mental mistakes or missed assignments. Those are the things that, and I got just a 411 for the portal guys. You better be a high football IQ guy if you're going to the portal. If you're a guy that cannot pick up the offenses and the defenses, if you're on whatever side you're at, you can't read a defense or anything as a wide receiver and the quarterback, you're not going to get picked up because the portal is for the high IQ, football IQ guys. Those are the guys they want inside their program. So it's an easy transition to go to a different defense, a different offense, a different run blocking scheme, all those different things. So you better be a guy that studies a lot of film. You better be able to be one of those guys that understand film and how to get better mentally. That's what you have to be when you get in that portal.
And finally, Glenn, before we get out of here, the Zoom clock is running on us. We're down to, I think, about 4 minutes. Red zone, they went in wanting to improve that. Last year, they were 74% scores, 31 touchdowns. This year, they went up to 81% scores with 59% touchdowns. So a 28% increase in touchdowns in the red zone this year, and that helps you lead to 5 wins.
Yeah, that's the W's. Those were the W's that created. I think they were doing good. So if we're doing this, we're going like this, that's what we need to do. Next year, it's got to be in the 80s, in the 90s, the 85, 90. We're getting that red zone. That's what we should be able to do. When you smell the end zone, you got to be able to go in there and eat. You can't be out there sitting around and playing around and then when he gets inside the red zone. And I think that Jed's going to be better. He's going to get better over the off season of dialing up plays that are going to be working for our personnel. And he knows our personnel a little bit better. So I think that will get better.
All right, Glenn, 12 years. I couldn't do this without you, my man. I appreciate you. You know I love you, man. So thank you for showing up every week, man. I always get emotional this time of the year because what you mean to me, man.
I tell you what, man, I just can't say enough for you, man, to give me the opportunity to do this, and I love you, man. You're like my brother, man. So I can't wait till we get to do this again. And it's been an exciting 12 years, and I appreciate you, and I'm thankful for you, and you're just like my brother, man. I appreciate you, bro. Love you.
All right, love you too, brother. All right, that's going to wrap up season number 12 for us on television, 13 overall in the 2022 campaign. 5-7, just a little bit short of a bowl game, but next year that will be the goal for this Arizona Wildcats football program. Stay with us here, News 4 Tucson Sports, for our continuing coverage of Arizona Wildcat football.